everyone, to our Leader as Coach podcast series where we equip organizational leaders with insights to develop excellence in their coaching approach. I'm Laurel Elders with the Institute for Integrative Intelligence. We're an ICF accredited level 1, 2, and CCE provider where it's our passion to elevate human potential through the art and the science of masterful coaching. My co host today is Michael Tucker. Michael's an executive coach, senior partner, and senior faculty here at the Institute. And today we are thrilled to be interviewing Luciana Nunez, the co author of Coaching Power, Leading with Coaching to Create Individual, Team, and Organizational Outperformance. Luciana is an accomplished executive coach and former CEO with more than 20 years of leadership experience at Fortune 500 companies. Welcome, Luciana.
Thank you, Laurel, and thank you, Michael. Thank you for having me.
Yes, we're very excited for today's topic. So, we are going to be discussing coaching power and leadership. To kick us off, Luciana, can you share with our audience more about your background with blending coaching and leadership?
Yeah, happy to share, and I will be very honest with you and your listeners that I came into coaching a little bit by accident when I was still in my leadership days. As a bit of background, typical corporate career, started in marketing, worked my way up to business development, sales, and I was doing a global role. And the brief in that global role was upgrade the leaders. And then I thought, how do you upgrade leaders? And I had 3,000 people under my scope from the US all the way to Indonesia. So I really had to figure out a model that would help us upgrade 3,000 leaders in a sustainable and meaningful way. And I did research, and I of course was aware of coaching, but I never realized that coaching could have such a big power. So I concluded that the way to upgrade 3,000 leaders was to do it through the lens of coaching. And because I tend to take things quite seriously, I decided that I wasn't going to do it from the sidelines. I became a coach. But I thought that I would become a coach just to have that in my leadership toolkit and to bring coaching to my leadership style. I truly never thought that I would do it professionally. But long story short, that process of upgrading the leaders through coaching was really transformative. The brief of upgrading the leaders had to do with the fact that that function was seen as a bit of a second class citizen. And 2 years into the process, when the function that was seen as the first class citizen came to me to say, why are we not in the discussions? Why are we not having a seat at the table? And that was what was happening to my function. I said, okay, job done. We have upgraded the leaders to the point that we are now the top of mind function because of the quality of leadership. So that was the impact that coaching had. And then fast forward to why I became a coach and your question on blending leadership and coaching was that I realized after my corporate career that I loved the world of business. I love the world of people in business, but I could actually have much more impact by working with, like you both, right? With instead of a team of 10 leaders, I can work with hundreds of leaders and I can help them maximize their impact and cascade it to the thousands of leaders that they have below and the thousands of leaders that they have below it. And that was just so inspiring. And I'm sure you feel the same, but it's the best job in the world because you get to work with leaders, but you get to inject them with the skills and the passion to lead with a coaching style. And that's so transformative that it's just the best job in the world. I don't know. I would love to hear what you think, but that's the way I feel when you bring them together.
That's fantastic. And I would concur. It is the best job in the world. I love this work. And I'm excited that you're here with us today, Luciana, because you and I, we've been talking for several years now, always about the latest and the greatest in coaching. And now you've written this incredible book and you're talking about here right now about um, coaching thousands of leaders and impacting thousands of leaders. When you think about the book that you've written, Coaching Power and Leadership, how would you communicate just how important having coaching as the leadership skill of the future is for leaders today?
That's a great question, because what I think is happening now that feels different than even what was happening 3 or 4 years ago is, I think there are three things that are coming together that make this need to lead with coaching so much more pressing and tangible now. The first thing is the role of AI in the world of leadership. It's not an if, it's a when. AI is gonna trickle into the way of leadership in the future. The second big trend is remote or hybrid leadership, right? You have to engage and influence people that are on the other side of the world, and you might never have met them, or you might never meet them. So you really have to figure out how to engage them, because if you tell them what to do from one extreme of the world to the other extreme, they're just going to be doers. You'll never make them into leaders. So AI, remote, and then the third big trend is we have 5 generations in the workplace for the first time, and the styles and how they show up and their needs and what they expect from leadership are very different from a boomer to a Gen Z. So, for example, if you think of these 5 generations, if you try to boss around a millennial or a Gen Z, it's not going to fly. They're going to push back. They want to be coached. So when you start to think about, okay, how do I engage the new generations? We really feel coaching is the way forward. Same with classical leadership skills. In a world where you can Google anything or chat GPT anything, the leaders that had all the answers are obsolete. It's all about starting to ask those powerful, thoughtful questions and ask them with the art of good questioning that we know coaching has. Because if you have the ability to ask and let people reach their own conclusions on their own, it's so empowering, it's so powerful versus just giving them the prepackaged answer. So the confluence of all of these things to us at the Preston Associates really made us realize that now's the time for leaders to embrace a coaching style as the ultimate skill for the future, because the leaders that have that command and control model are not going to be effective into the future. So it feels like it's the right almost zeitgeist for coaching to be the most natural, the most almost second nature way for leaders to switch their style and easily adopt the coaching style. So when Wiley came to ask if we would write a book about it, we got carried away, and here we are. The book is out, and we're now sharing this perspective that is really resonating with leaders, because they go, yeah, actually, that's what I've been feeling for a while. Now I see the need to upskill myself to become a good coach. And that's really the premise of the book, is all about the how you build those questioning skills, the active listening skills, the ability to truly empower people through a development conversation. So it's really that step-by-step guideline, if you will, to help leaders develop and practice that coaching style.
You know, what's coming to my mind as I hear you talk about this is this whole idea of globalization. And I'm curious how important it is for leaders to have these skills in a global environment. And what have you seen be effective in global organizations?
I love that angle, and disclaimer, you can probably hear it from my accent as well. I'm a global citizen myself. I grew up in Argentina. I first moved to Switzerland in my first international move. Then I went to the US, then I went to Amsterdam. So being a global reality is something that, one thing is to learn it in your personal experience, the other thing is to be global in a digital way, the way leaders need to be today. So to your point, what's the role of coaching and this global phenomenon? We look at it through the lens of what we call cultural competence, meaning leaders need to understand that they need to start stepping back to observe all of the beautiful elements that make a person, that are really all about not only your age and your race and your gender identity, but also how you grew up, your background, your beliefs, the groups of belonging that you have, the communities that you're a part of. Leaders need to start becoming much more receptive to embracing that cultural tapestry that people bring, because you have to coach and lead someone in your backyard. Then the next day, one person in your team is going to be from the Middle East, and you've got to be able to feel both comfortable asking the right questions in the right way so that you bring the richness of their cultural beauty, but also in a way that you're not afraid to ask. Because today leaders are so afraid to say the wrong thing that they're holding back from actually inquiring, being curious, understanding people's backgrounds. And coaching is, we believe, the way into it, because when you learn to ask the right questions with the right intent in the right way, you can invite all of that richness into the conversation, so that if you have a global team, you can really take advantage of all of that global richness. So that enabler of coaching as the conduct for that curiosity that you're leaning into versus being afraid to ask, we think that it could be such a powerful way to bring that power of globality into what I think is the so what of bringing that into the day to day of the business world. But I would love to hear your perspectives on that. I know that you both do quite a bit of that work too.
No, I'm in 100% agreement with what you're saying, Luciana, and this whole idea of cultural competency and understanding the whole person, and regardless of where they are in the world as a coach, and their leadership style, because at different places in the world, leadership is completely different.
Yes.
And so I can imagine that being curious about leadership styles based on culture and asking those really thoughtful questions could be transformative for an organization, whether it's here in the U.S. or the U.K. or the Middle East, as you mentioned a little bit earlier. So,
Yeah. And I'm just appreciating personally having experienced the power of coaching in a leadership position, just moving from that place of uncertainty of, oh, should I do this? Should I do that? I needed to figure it all out to, oh, I can just engage coaching skills and be curious. And then the answers come forward. It's like a relief. Coaching
Yeah.
offered such a relief. Yeah, and I love
Yeah.
that you use the word enabled. Like it's enabling leaders to lead in this new and really connected, meaningful way.
Yeah, because I think like you're saying, Laura, it it makes the shift for leaders that think that they have to know and that they have to have the answers, for them to realize that they don't have to know, they just have to ask and stay curious for a little bit longer and be receptive to what they hear and learn and absorb. And the questions really are that enabler to that growth mindset. And you both know this. Questions are the raw ingredient for good coaching, right? So if we help leaders stay in that place of good questions, we will help bring that curiosity and therefore that global mindset to teams. So how lucky are we?
Yes.
yeah. What are some of the examples that maybe our listeners might benefit from hearing from your experience about these coaching cultures that you've been able to create?
Mm. Well, I'll be honest with you. I'll tell you the good and the bad, because we've learned from both. We've learned what works and we've learned what doesn't work. So, for example, throughout 20 years of operating throughout the world, right? We have offices in the US, in the UK, in Europe, and in Asia. We've received every brief you can think of. And sometimes there's a leadership team that, for some reason, comes to the conclusion that they want to create a coaching culture, and they bring that brief to the HR team, and the HR team starts to run around and brief vendors, and they say, let's build this together. But if sometimes you don't slow down to really work with the client to think about, okay, what's your culture like? What are your ways of working? What are your routines, your your habits? Sometimes you're going to check a box and launch a coaching process, But if the company is not really sold from the top of the organization, that first of all, they want to be role models of good coaching themselves. So we've followed that brief, but then we realized that the guys at the top, the leadership team, the C-suite level, was not really interested in becoming good students themselves. And that never became a coaching culture. So sometimes as a coaching partner, you've got to test if the company really understands what they are getting into and how deep do they really want to go with committing to create a coaching culture. So we've seen it in terms of what doesn't work. We've also seen how it does work. So let me maybe give you a case study example that we have in the book. I'll be brief, but we worked with a company for now over 15 years in the UK. And as I said before, the guys at the top, the leadership team, knew the power of coaching because they were experiencing team coaching themselves for a few years. And they were all having either one on one coaching or even peer coaching. So they were the perfect role models for that. So when we got that brief, we said, okay, this company means it and they want to walk the talk. We created a program to start at the next level down. And it was all first about peer coaching and cross-functional peer coaching. So all of a sudden you had the marketing guy coach the operations guy in a situation that they had never experienced before. And even if they stayed in a coaching mode, when they started to see the world through each other's lenses, it created a coaching culture, but it also started to break functional silos. And it started to help people bring topics to the table that typically they would have kept within the comfort zone of the function. So one byproduct that we saw there is that it shifted the level of collaboration that functions had with each other because they learned to trust each other as thinking partners, not only business partners. So that was a big coaching culture shift, is when you can make people go from colleagues to thinking partners. The second big shift was when we took the program to the next level below. So C-suite, let's say VPs, directors, and then those VPs and directors started to practice coaching with the next level below, not only with their teams, but most important, across functions. So then the finance director was coaching a manager maybe in operations. So same richness started to trickle in, but you also had the differential of someone experienced and someone more junior, not in a mentoring relationship, but in a coaching relationship that changes the nature of that. And that starts to also take a little bit of the hierarchy fear away. So first benefit we saw was that cross-functional pollination. Second benefit we saw was that all of a sudden people that were more junior felt more comfortable interacting with people that before felt too far away from their comfort zone. So that made innovation for that company actually go faster because all of a sudden the more junior levels felt much more fearless to bring their perspective to the table. A, because they knew how to through coaching, but also because they saw that person is just a person. So this company did a tracking 10 years after this intervention, and consistently all of the leaders, 25 leaders that participated in the process, said it was by far the best leadership development opportunity I had in my career. And some of those graduates from that program continue to call us to this day because they said, I want that magic that I experienced firsthand to now happen for my team. So literally, as we speak, I'm working now with one of those leaders that was part of that program 10 years ago. And she's cascading that magic to her team in a different country. She has now moved to Spain and is cascading the magic to her team. So that's really the magic, again, sorry for using the same word, of knowing how to create a coaching culture, but also knowing what to avoid as pitfalls. How does it resonate with you?
That makes so much sense. And what is fascinating to me is that I'm seeing the research show that companies that have adopted the coaching cultures are the ones that have this advantage or are making more income. And you just connected all the dots. Like, here's why. they're they're coming together in these new ways and innovating in these new ways, giving them these almost like superpowers.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, as you were talking, Luciana, the image of a single-celled organism was coming to my mind. And I'm seeing these organizations actually working together as a whole, as opposed
Mm,
to these fractioned off pieces. I'm curious, when you think about what makes coach like
mm.
leaders different and distinct from just maybe what people may commonly think of as leadership, how do you make the distinction?
It's a pretty deep question. So let me try and unpack it through the layers. First, I think there's something about the maturity of a leader that understands that the only way to get things done at that point in their career is not by doing it themselves, is by getting others to do it. That's a big shift. You've seen it when you're coaching that manager to leader level of an organization, right? So the leaders that are coach like understand that it's not in their hands, it's in someone else's hands. And that their secret sauce is going to be about how do I get to just unlock that power in that person so they don't do what I want them to do. They do what they believe is the right thing to do. And that's how coaching is the vehicle for the coach to, through the process of inquiry, lead the person into the thinking, because then they own the output of that thinking process. They own the actions that they commit to, and then they own their ability to execute and to move the needle and to be proud for the results. So I think it first requires that maturity from the leader, but it also requires a little bit of a what I call a leader that is strong self, low ego, meaning you understand that the accolades will go to your team, not to you. You're not doing it for the personal glory. You're doing it because you want your team to shine and you want to move the needle, but you don't have to be the one doing it. So the leaders that are ready to make that shift are the leaders that are ready to coach. And then what I've also seen is that the leaders that learn to coach, when they understand that it's a pretty simple process, actually, and that is very, very repeatable, very scalable, that yes, it takes a little bit of upfront time. Instead of giving the straight answers, you're going to slow down and ask the right questions and help people see what was the process of questioning that you followed. You showed them the black box, you opened the black box, you guide them into these are the questions that I asked you. Now, next time you need to think it through, go ahead and leverage these questions. So that the third thing that they need to do is to be generous with unpacking the process so that the people that they are coaching then learn to coach themselves. But this requires you to be again in a very different stage of your evolution into leadership, because it's about more the others than yourself.
Wow.
That is fascinating. What advice would you have for a younger leader then that may
Mm.
may not be there yet?
That's such a good one, because I was just doing the intake for a team coaching session that I'm going to do next week. And I encountered that young leader that you're describing, those that are very performance oriented and very, very much about, yeah, I need the people to do what I need them to do so that we can all achieve the results that we want. And he was a little bit frustrated, saying, they expect me to spend all of this time with the people doing the people bits, but I just think it's a waste of time. And I just want to go, go, go. That to me is a leader that is still very much in doer mode and not yet in coaching mode. So through that conversation, we went a little bit into the zone of coaching by having him realize that if he invests time to go underneath the surface into what motivates this person, what's driving them, what's important for them, how do I get them to go where they need to go, not push them where they need to go. If you go in that zone, you're going to wake up people into, first of all, having them feel that you're invested truly in their growth. And that person is going to go to the end of the world for you. So when he realized that the trick to performance was true engagement from the people by showing it a genuine interest in a way that we know coaching can do, sometimes when you see that penny drop in front of your eyes, and he went like, oh, I'm missing a trick here. So I think that's the advice for those young leaders, is realize that the higher you go, in the organization, the less you can control the output by doing it yourself. The more you rely on others to do it so that then the needle moves. And you cannot get them to move unless you find a way into motivating them. And again, we know that coaching is one of those magical ways. So that will be my advice to them is just trust the process, realize that you'll get the best performance out of people if you take the time to coach them versus like, go, 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 that's the direction. Now run faster.
Yeah. I love your commitment and your passion for developing young leaders. And I'm really, really curious, how have you noticed this merger of coaching and leadership impact your leadership and also your coachship, if you will,
Mm,
in terms of working with your clients and the coaches that you lead, because you have a pretty big team too.
yeah. Yeah, I think the moments where I notice it the most, funnily enough, and I'm curious to hear what you think, but the moments where it's more obvious actually to me as a coach is in team coaching situations.
Hmm.
Because you see the shift and you see the shift even in 3 days. Because when you're working with someone, sometimes it takes you 6 months maybe to see that shift for them to go from manager to lead, from manager to coach, and from directing to coaching. But when you tackle them together at a team level and they come with a certain mindset and a certain set of behaviors on day one, and you spend 3 days or 2 days in a room, in an offsite, really going deep into them as leaders and their coaching style, and they start to coach each other, they start to build what we call thinking partnerships with each other, you see that they just cracked the code in 90 minutes on something that they've been wrestling with for 2 years. I've literally heard this in a team coaching session saying, we were stuck with this challenge for the last 2 years and we were going nowhere and we were spinning and unable to solve it. But now, because we are tackling the problem through good coaching questions that make us stay in the what, right? One of the first secrets is don't go into the how, stay in the what. What is going on? What does success look like? What does good look like? Aligning on the standards of success. So we help them stay in coaching mode, unpacking the challenge. And only when they completed that what cycle, they go into the how and the who does what by when. When they experience that and they literally in 90 minutes crack the code on something that felt unsolvable before, that's when they realize, guys, we've got to go into this coaching mode because it makes us better leaders, better managers, better teammates. So it's almost one of those lab situations that make the before and after so palpable that is undeniable. So that's why to me, yes, team coaching is a harder form of coaching. It's more demanding on the coach. It takes different skills. But when you lead a good team coaching, you feel awesome. You're spent too. You probably have that experience after 3 days. You're like, I just want room service now. But you also feel awesome because you've seen that shift. So that's for me the moment where I feel that zone of coaching and leadership coming together in powerful ways. Does
Mm.
that help answer?
It really does, and it's interesting because what I'm hearing is one of the ways that it's changing you is it's creating a deeper connection with the coaching experience overall. That's really what
Yeah.
I'm hearing, and it sounds that it's very fulfilling to you.
It definitely is. There's, at least for me, there's a bit of a high that comes from it at the end of the day. It's also trickier because you're on the edge quite a bit sometimes. I've had big time blow ups at a team session, something, unexpected shows up and you have to stop and go where it needs to go and just confront conflict head on. Like you can't shy away from this. So this is the story of when it goes well, but you also have moments that are more challenging. So yeah, it's fulfilling as a coach, but it's also very challenging as a coach. Let's not forget that our profession has those moments of challenge where you have to raise to the occasion and be brave and stay in the not knowing and still plow through. So yes, it's fulfilling, but it's also challenging in a good way. But I would love to hear some of your perspectives since we're geeking out in this zone of coaching with each other.
Oh my gosh, so much, especially when, I'm thinking about all the times, I'm just relating to everything you're saying and all the times I've wanted to just step in and give a solution and there was that discomfort of stay in coaching. And the result was so much more profound, right? That like so glad I was able to and I learned stay in the silence, the space is where the possibilities hang out. If we step in too soon, we've like cut off some possibilities and it takes practice.
Yeah, and you know what's coming to me about this is just the fact that leaders have so many different roles, so many hats that they're wearing.
Mm.
And I think that there's definitely a place where that coaching can take place and that curiosity. And then there's other times where the leader is required to be a little bit more direct.
Mm.
And I think
Mhm.
one of the misnomers or the myths about being a coach like leader is that you're only standing around asking people questions and you're never directing. And and I don't think that could be further from the truth.
Yeah, you're so right, and that is actually one of my favorite coaching questions. I'll give it away. When I'm coaching someone, is I ask them to reflect on what I call the 3 years of leadership. To
Hmm.
your point, there's a time to manage, there's a time to lead, and there's a time to coach, and they all have a place to be. Sometimes you just need to roll up the sleeves and get it done. You've got to go into managing mode. Sometimes, to your point, you have to be in leadership mode. You have to set the direction, you have to show the expectations, and you have to let them go there. You're leading, but they are doing the doing. And sometimes you have to go into coaching mode. But you've got to know, first of all, what percentage of your time are you spending today in each mode? And what percentage of your time should you be spending? And that answer depends on two things. First of all, your maturity as a leader, right? Are you prepared to shift gears competently? But also your context. Sometimes, to your point, you have a very junior team that needs a lot of directing. So in that case, I have them zoom into the skill and will matrix that we're very familiar with, because sometimes a team is in a very low skill mode and still the will is not there because they are afraid. So you've got to be a bit more directive. You've got to be a bit more role modeling about it. You have to show them how it's done. So you have to go into managing mode again, but then slow down to take the time to deconstruct not only how you did it, but the reasons that led you to do it in a certain way. You've got to be patient to manage, but then also to teach and to direct. And sometimes you've got to coach and inspire and motivate, but you have to slow down and ask yourself. And that's, I think, the secret. What gear do I need in this moment? Do I need to manage? Do I need to lead? Or do I need to coach and make it a conscious choice? And then when you know, you'll know what toolkit serves you best.
I love that. I love that. So, Luciana, you've been giving us gems of knowledge and wisdom. How can people get their hands on coaching power?
Oh, that's the easiest part. They just can go into Amazon, look up the book. Is available for pre-orders now. It's being officially released on April the 8th. I can't wait to hear what your listeners think of the book, what they want, what they need. So have them feel free to reach out to me with their thoughts and their views. But get the book, dive in. We wrote it in a way that we intentionally wanted to be very approachable and very friendly. So it's filled with case studies frameworks, self-reflection exercises, prompts for yourself. So it's very practical as well. So yes, you can read it in a linear way, but you can also zoom in the area that you feel you need the most right now. So we have fundamentals of coaching, one-on-one coaching, team coaching, leadership skills for the future. So feel free to treat it a little bit as a menu of tools that you don't need to go from 1, 2, 3, and 4 to be able to really dive into number 5 and still get the gist of it. So that's it. Go get it, and we're here to support in unpacking some of the ideas if we can be of help.
Wow. It sounds like it's a Swiss Army knife, if you will, of tools that these leaders can take advantage of.
That's it. I never thought of it that way, but I guess it is. I guess it is. And we had a lot of debate, to be honest with you, internally with other coaches and team of coaches saying, are we giving away our secret sauce to the world? And it wasn't easy to say that, well, the world is ready for it. And we still believe in a model of generosity where even if you give away some of those frameworks, people will still need you at a different level of complexity to get your help as a coach. So yes, it's a bit of a Swiss Army knife for people, but we did it a little bit intentionally because we want to open the black box and help people learn to coach and learn to experiment. I think that's the other key takeaway is just play with it and practice it with yourself. There's no other way to get good at something other than just do it and have fun with it. So that's my hope that the Swiss Army will help people, not poke and make a hole, but just like discover what they can do with it in different ways.
I love that. Thank you. Well, we are at time. So, Luciana, thank you so much for sharing your powerful insights with us today. And just so inspiring. So honored to have you join us. We're going to be putting the link to the book and Luciana's work below as this gets posted. So please scoop that up, check it out. I know I'm excited to scoop up a copy. And thank you everyone who's joined us today. We hope that this conversation has equipped you with powerful new leadership coaching insights. At the Institute, we help leaders and organizations increase business performance and leadership impact by developing coaching talent and creating coaching cultures. If you are a leader seeking an ICF accredited coach training program, we have a new program, Leader as Coach. Level 1, we start March 26th. And we now have Luciana's book as an amazing reference as well to add to that, to your toolkit. So March 26th, you can visit us at integrativeintelligence.global to learn more, or email admissions@integrativeintelligence.global. Thank you again. It's been such a pleasure.
Same. Thank you for having me.